Have you ever been lonely? And I'm not talking about feeling bored, stuck at the house because everybody's gone off for the afternoon and there's nothing going on. I'm talking about lonely as in I'm going through a situation and I feel like I'm the only one dealing with it and I'm completely and totally by myself, because that kind of loneliness you can feel even if you're in a room full of people. So I'm going to ask you today again, have you ever felt lonely? And if you have, how'd you deal with it? I've heard of people referring to going through trials and tribulations as going through the fire. Well, let me tell you about three gentlemen who went through the fire. This is a story from the Bible that comes out of the book of Daniel in chapter 3. And it's about a king, Nebuchadnezzar, who set up this golden idol. And he made a declaration that all the people, when the music was playing, had to fall down and bow down to this idol. Well, some people came to him and said, there's three folks who are not doing that. It's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This made the king very angry. And he brought those three men to him. And when they refused to bow down, he demanded that they be cast into this fiery furnace. And he was so angry that he wanted the fire even hotter than it had been before. So he had them stoke the fire. In fact, he wanted it 7 times hotter than it had ever been. And it was so hot that when the guards took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego there, before the guards could get there to open the door to cast them in, that the fire was so hot that it burnt them up. And so, as it was, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into the fiery furnace. And in a little while, they realized that even though they were in there, they weren't burning up. In fact, when they looked inside, they didn't see 3 people inside. They saw 4 inside. And they said it appears that there's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and what appears to be the Son of God with them. You know, we've heard the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego probably before. We've heard the story of how they were delivered by God from the fiery furnace. Sometimes we forget the fact that God didn't just deliver them from the fiery furnace, but in fact, he was there with them to protect them as they were inside the fiery furnace. New Testament in the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 4. I want to read to you verses 16 and 17, but I want to set it up and tell you what's going on here. The Apostle Paul's in prison. He's nearing the end of his life, and he knows that. And he's writing to Timothy. And he tells Timothy these words: "At my first offense, no one stood with me, but all forsook me. May it not be charged against them. But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, so that the message might be preached fully through me, and that all the Gentiles might hear." Paul was encouraging Timothy and reminding Timothy that even though everyone forsook him, and even though that he was there in prison, and he relied on a few friends that were close to him, that the Lord never did forsake him, that the Lord stood with him, and he strengthened him through those trials. You know, at some point, we're all going to go through the fire. And it's easy to think, I'm in this alone. I'm the only one that's having to deal with this. I'm the only one that's going through it. Because we're human. We forget sometimes that as we're in the fire, God is with us. In Hebrews, the 13th chapter, God promised he'd never leave nor forsake us. Sometimes in that fire, we forget those words. But God's with us. I want you to think of James chapter 4, where it said if you draw near to God, God will draw near to you. He's with us. He's going to guide us. He's going to be there. We need that strength. We need that encouragement. So no matter whether you're going through the fire now or about to go through the fire, or one day you'll be going through the fire, you can take comfort knowing that you're not in it alone. That God is with you, there to comfort and strengthen you in the midst of your loneliness. May God bless you this coming week.